Hello and welcome to Africa Weekly. Africa is endowed with nature's beauty, rich in wildlife and habitats that have been developed into game reserves and parks in many countries. How much of these resources been used for the continent's advancement is the main focus of the program this week. We also have our attention on the mining sector and its vast potential for economic growth. My name is Justin Bemunyana. Welcome you to Africa Weekly. Parks are natural resource for games and tourism. They also help in preserving wildlife and the beauty of what nature has given mankind to cherish. Proper utilization for social and economic development means they have to be maintained and preserved, which is now a major challenge for many countries in the continent.
First, I think we need a very strong...
Minister of Environment, Mohammed Abdullahi, advocates the prioritizing of nature conservation in the national development plans of African nations in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. This, he says, is needed for the expansion and preservation of protected areas to combat climate change, reduce losses in biodiversity, and build the resilience of people whose livelihoods depend on natural ecosystems.
We need a broad stakeholder engagement from the community to the youth to the elders and, in fact, to law enforcement, so that we can begin to look at nature conservation as a moral obligation for each citizen of a country.
The conference is also seeking an end to the dependence on foreign donors, encouraging African leaders to look inwards for the funding of protected areas and biodiversity conservation.
The protected areas we are talking about, these are actually being designed by the colonialists before they left. Maybe we haven't done enough. We haven't grown the space. We need to grow the space, but our people must be in the center of this space.
And if we do not protect 30% of our land mass at this time, I think we will be ending up in a catastrophe very soon. So that's why, because of the urgency, this 30 by 30 has become an agenda, and it's an African agenda, basically.
Stakeholders believe that protected areas, if expanded and conserved, can provide millions of green jobs for the continent.
Now joining us to analyze this issue deeper is the Conservator General, National Park Service, Ibrahim Goni. Well, I thank you so much for joining us on Africa Weekly, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, the Nigerian experience is what we're looking at when it comes to park resource in Africa. Can you give us your perspective on the state of park resource in some African countries?
Thank you very much. When you say park resource, it connotes so many things. But I want to believe that you are talking about national parks and other protected areas here.
Exactly.
All right. If that is correct, then Africa has about 8,600 protected and conserved areas. And these are scattered over 54 countries of Africa. The resources in this park range from the plant resources, from the smallest plant to the bigger plants, from the micro to the macro, then from the smallest animal to the biggest animal. And most often, when you talk of park resources, what comes into people's mind immediately is the animals constituting those parks. in most cases, people tend to forget the habitat, the plants that harbor the animals. So the vegetation of Africa range from the forest through the Guinea up to the Sahel and the Savannah, and the Sahara. So given this trend, the resources differ from one vegetation zone to the other.
So in terms of park utilization generally, what is the case of Nigeria when it comes to utilization of these parks?
Yes, I want to take this in the context of benefits that can be derived from these parks and the conserved areas. And when you talk of the benefits that can be derived from this park and conserved areas, you cannot discuss this without immediately mentioning the communities surrounding such areas. In the first place, we have to give it to the communities, whether we like it or not, for being the soldiers protecting such areas, and also commending them for the support they are giving to those of us that are in this field of protecting these parks and the conserved areas. Then the benefits, some of them derive from these park resources. One that can easily be mentioned by anybody, even the layman, is tourism. Okay. Where visitors come, spend their hard-earned money, and go into these villages to be able to buy their craft, and also, one way or the other, buy some of the petty things the petty traders sell. So that way is a benefit. That is a tangible benefit which you can easily see. Another benefit the people derive from this park, most of these parks act as agents of rural development. Where these parks are, government try as much as possible to construct roads, construct health centers, construct educational centers, and even work on their markets and other economic and social infrastructure.
I believe in the development of these parks and, of course, utilization of these parks in the country. There could be, or there should be, some challenges that have been faced. In your opinion, what are these challenges that have been faced in the development of these parks and the utilization of same parks in the country?
Yes, this is a very interesting question. Yes, there's no management without challenge. And therefore, the case of our protected and conserved areas is not different. And in the case of the protected and conserved areas, a lot of them have suffered downgrading. Most have been downgraded, most have been downsized, and of course, most have been disintegrated. Nigeria has about 1,129 protected and conserved areas. Of this, just about 600 have been surveyed and are found to be still existing. Others are remaining on paper. So this is one way, this is one biggest challenge the protected areas are suffering. Another challenge is our attitude. Our attitude, when I say our attitude, you and me, and the others that are listening to this program, our attitude to the environment generally needs to be changed. When from throwing away paper bags, nylons, and the rest of them on the environment, we are degrading the environment before you even extend this attitude to these protected and conserved areas. These conserved areas provide the rural man, particularly in Africa. About 300 million of the rural communities depend on these ecosystem services. Most of them get their pharmaceutical needs, their medicines, their energy supply, even their water supply from these parks. Now, if these activities are not carried out on sustainable basis, the tendency is for these places to be degraded, to be downsized, and to be downgraded.
Just a quick one before I let you go. Can you give us an insight, just briefly, into the recent conference in Kigali on Africa's protected areas?
That's interesting. Yes. The conference in Kigali is about a Pan-African Conservation Trust, which we refer to as APAT. And this was midwife by the African Protected Areas Director, otherwise known as APAT.
Okay.
So the directors midwife this APAT, which was pre-launched in Kigali, and about 53 countries of the 54 countries in Africa attended the conference. The essence of the Pan-African Conservation Trust is to establish a hybrid trust which will serve as a finance mechanism to bridge the gap between what government provides for protected areas and what they lack. It is not intended at putting aside other funding sources. No, it is to complement other funding sources.
Well, Mr. Brian Goni, we cannot thank you enough for spending your time with us on Africa Weekly to see some of these things and throw more light on these issues surrounding park resources in Africa, the Nigerian experience. I thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, this is Africa Weekly. The program continues in a moment. Do stay tuned. Nigeria has made a strong case for effective collaboration and cooperation by the international community towards finding lasting solutions to the prevailing challenges of security, describing it as global threats to civilization. President Muhammadu Buhari, who made the request while granting audience to new envoys posted to Nigeria, expressed that belief that matters of security have become the business of all nations.
The new envoys were in the State House, Nigeria's seat of government, to present their letters of credence to President Muhammadu Buhari. This is to mark the beginning of their representational duties in Africa's largest economy. The envoys are the Canadian High Commissioner to Nigeria, James Kingston Christophe, and the Mexican Ambassador to Nigeria, Juan Alfred Miranda Ortiz. President Muhammadu Buhari, who formally welcomed the envoys to Abuja, tasked them to not only build on the successes of their predecessors, but to further make efforts at expansion and advancement in relations with Nigeria across political, socio-economic, and cultural spheres.
The ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine has undermined the progress countries have achieved in tackling food security in the last decade, while the political instability in Libya continues to fuel terrorism in the Sahel, as well as scatter the democratic sustenance in both West and Central African regions. Nigeria is not left out of the equation, as we are fighting to rid our country of banditry, kidnapping, harder farmer crisis, and insurgency. We are, however, making meaningful progress with the support of friendly countries like yours.
The African Development Bank Group President Dr. Akinwumi Adesina has been honored with the distinguished Ronald Harmon Brown Award of International Distinction by the National Bar Association in the United States. The award is named in honor of Ron Brown, the first African-American to chair a major U.S. political party and the first African-American to be appointed Commerce Secretary. The Black Tie Gala was attended by over 800 black lawyers, including 20 past National Bar Association presidents and several elected officials. Receiving the award, Adesina lauded the late Ron Brown as an inspirational figure who believed that every idea was an impossibility until it is born.
We had an idea called the I-5s, to light up and empower Africa, to feed Africa, to industrialize Africa, to integrate Africa, and to improve the quality of life of the people of Africa.
The mining sector is projected to be one capable of lifting the African continent to the pedestal of economic growth. And that is why many countries, including Nigeria, is now paying serious attention to that sector.
Nigerian mining value chain regulation presented by the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development is aimed at discouraging the exportation of raw materials from Nigeria so that the country gets maximum benefits from the economic resource potentials.
In Bauchi State, for instance, we are building a processing plant for kaolin. We have a lot of kaolin around Bauchi. We have a similar thing in Ebonyi State, where we have done a lead processing plant. We are doing a barite processing plant in Cross River State. We have a gold processing plant in Kogi. In Ibadan, it's the gemstones market, where we will add value to the gemstones that we find in Nigeria before they are exported.
A gold souk, he said, is under construction in Kano for the Northwest Zone towards processing gold for jewelry making.
Joining us now via Zoom from Bauchi is the National Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Metallurgical, Mining and Materials Engineers, Professor Ajay Tokan. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on the program Africa Weekly. Can
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, briefly, can you give us your perspective on the state of the mining sector in Nigeria at the moment?
There is no coherence. Coherence in the sense that actual organizational or organized method of doing it. And the mining industry is supposed to put in a lot of revenue into government coffers. Unfortunately, that is not what we are getting now. The mining industry is just about 0.5%. If you take that and compare with other sister African countries, we are far, far away. Ghana, for example, has about 5.5% at GDP. Other countries like South Africa, Australia, if you want to go out of Africa, they are well ahead in terms of the benefit of the mining industry in such countries. So in Nigeria, we can say we are still far away from realizing the benefit of the mining industry.
Well, you know, people have continued to talk about the potential of the mining sector to boost the economy, yet the sector is still crawling. What is holding it back?
Yeah, thank you. You know, for us that grew in the northern part of Nigeria, and for some of us that had the privilege of coming around, let's say, to the plateau, if you go around, you will see a lot of mining sites in which there was nothing like backfilling. People just came around, do some little picking of whatever they can pick, and they go away. The mining industry actually has been bedeviled with so many issues. Paramount is the insecurity when we come to present day. Insecurity, and then the funding for those who want to really go into it. Perhaps they want to go to the bank, you know, get some credit in order to facilitate their activities. It becomes a little bit tough. And then the infrastructure. What are some of the basic things required in terms of mining? You know, do we have the machinery? So all these are things which we have been, we are battling with. You can also look at the issue of the data, the geosciences data. How much of it do we have? Yes, I know that a lot of like the geomining society, a lot of work has been done, but is it properly documented? Is government using such data in order to give the stakeholders or those who are interested in mining, you know, the leverage to say, oh, we have so and so in so and so place? Is it well documented? Is it well coordinated? We cannot say. And then we have issues in terms of what weak policy. You know, in Nigeria, you always have beautiful things on paper. But when it comes to implementation, it becomes a problem. So in that we refer to as weak policy. Yes, the policy is there, but it is not being properly adhered to. It's not been, properly policed so that you will have the benefit of such policies. And then there are other issues which the sector has been going through. That is the illegal mining.
Okay.
In fact, I live in Bauchi, and sometimes when I going around, let's say passing through to Abuja by road, you see a lot of activities, artisanal mining activities. Now, sometimes they will not, if you stop and ask, who ask you, who gave you permission, they will say, no, somebody just came around, say, go and dig this place.
You are now advocating a strong regulatory policy. And, just recently the federal government
Yes.
approved a regulatory policy. The president in particular approved that policy for the sector. What is your take on that?
The main problem actually is the implementation. So the implementation of the policy which the federal government, is rolling out is very important. And just as I said, it is necessary that, because if you say this is for the miner, then the inspector who is to ensure that when he goes out, he himself will be happy that he has done his job is very important. And those who are being checked will be happy also that they are doing the right things. So when you put these together, then you can now talk about implementation of the policy of the federal government, which is now favorable. Of course, all the policies are favorable because it is plus for you, it is also plus for the government. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I really thank you for your time. We really do appreciate your time with us on the program Africa Weekly. Thank you so much for hooking up with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, we've been speaking to the National Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Metallurgical, Mining and Materials Engineers, Professor Ajay Token. The program continues in a moment. Do stay tuned. That's our package this week. Thank you so much for being part of it. My name is Justin Bemui.